Good morning, every one of you. So, in the CT2, we have seen until now the nuclear energy production, how to produce a nuclear energy. So, in this one production, there are many structural components or many components of the nuclear fission reactors are there. In this one, we have seen many coolants are there. So, among this coolant, there is a deuterium oxide, D2O. Then in the moderator also this D2O is there. So what is this D2O? This has applications as a coolant as well as moderator in this particular nuclear energy production. So this one is known as a heavy water. Okay, normal water is we are denoting with which H2O, but this deuterium oxide is known as a heavy water. So that is D2O, in which D is a deuterium oxide. So how to manufacture this deuterium oxide? What are the various pertinent properties? How it is different from the normal water? We will see. So heavy water, or we will call this as a deuterium oxide D2O. So the heavy water refers to a highly enriched water mixture that mostly contains mostly deuterium oxide. So heavy water, this hydrogen will be there. So that is called as a protium. So hydrogen isotopes, various isotopic forms of hydrogen is this one. So isotopes, we know that one. So it will be differing in their neutron number. Okay, here see in the deuterium, this is deuterium is one isotope of the hydrogen, and then tritium is one isotope of the hydrogen. So these are all the various forms of isotopes of the hydrogen. So the isotope, okay, this deuterium is present in very high amount in this heavy water compared to the normal water. So D2O it is called. But also some hydrogen deuterium oxide and a smaller amount of ordinary hydrogen oxide H2O will be present. So that is called as a heavy water. In the heavy water, large portion of heavy water will be this deuterium oxide, and some portions will be hydrogen deuterium oxide, which is called HDO, and some part will be the hydrogen oxide, which is this one, normal water. So what are the various forms? So it is the form of water only. So this heavy water is also a form of water that contains a larger than normal amount of the hydrogen isotope, which will contains larger than normal amount of water than the normal isotopes. Okay, normal hydrogen isotope will be containing a larger, which is called as a deuterium, rather than a common isotope, which is called as a protium. So protium means a normal hydrogen in water. Then what about the molecular weight of the water? So molecular weight of the water we are seeing that is 18. Then the molecular weight of this heavy water will be around 20.0276 gram per mole or kg per kg mole. So there is a difference between the molecular weight. That is the light water or normal water we are calling, that will have a molecular weight of 18, whereas this heavy water will have a molecular weight of something between 20.0276. So the natural source, okay, the natural source of deuterium is the water only. So from water only some part, okay, very minute amount of part will be contained of deuterium will be contained in the normal water. So that will be the normal source for us to obtain a deuterium oxide. So it is present in the form of HDO and H2 obtained from the petroleum fractions. In the petroleum fractions also, from that one also we can obtain in the form of HDO or H2, normally hydrogen form, H2O form. So we can obtain from the normal water, or we can use some petroleum fraction cuts also we can use to obtain this heavy water. So in all these sources, whatever the natural forms of deuterium is there, which will be present in very minute quantities, around something like 0.146. Okay, 0.0146% only this deuterium will be there. So in order to prepare a heavy water with a heavy composition of deuterium oxide, we have to convert them. We have to separate. Okay, we have to separate the deuterium from that normal water or from that normal natural sources. To do that one, there are many processes we will discuss in the next topic. So there are many methods to produce that one. There are many advantages also to produce this deuterium oxide, which is called as heavy water, compared to the normal water. So it will contains a larger than the normal amount of hydrogen isotope, which is called deuterium, also known as heavy hydrogen. rather than the common hydrogen isotope normal, which is called as a protium. So normal isotopes of this hydrogen which is present in a water is this protium, but in the heavy water this deuterium oxide will be present in very high amounts. So the presence of deuterium gives the water different nuclear properties and the increase of mass. So here the mass is also increasing, gives it slightly different physical and chemical properties when compared to normal water, but not radioactivity. So it will not have any radioactivity, but compared to the normal water, it will somewhat heavier. It is somewhat greater mass compared to the normal water. Then deuterium is a hydrogen isotope. So as you can see, this deuterium, tritium are nothing but a hydrogen isotopes. So hydrogen isotopes with a nucleus containing a neutron and a proton. And the nucleus of protium, normal hydrogen atom consists of just a proton. So here if you can see the normal, whatever water we are drinking, in that one only proton will be there here. But here in the deuterium, okay, deuterium, one neutron is there, one proton is there. But here you are increasing the neutron. Okay, tritium is two neutrons, one proton. So one proton is common for every isotope, but neutron is increasing, that one. So then proton and neutron, then the density of this heavy water is 11% greater than the normal water. So 1 gram per cc, we are assuming at normal temperature and pressure STP conditions, but it will be 11% higher or greater than the normal water. So that is the difference between this heavy water and this normal water. So 5 grams of heavy water in human body will be present, but it is harmless. Okay, we will have some doubts that can we drink the heavy water in place of the normal water? No, you cannot drink. So if that is that deuterium oxide is more than that 5%, it will be very harmful for human beings. So that's why we will not drink water which is very heavy. So that is more than 5% of 5 grams. Okay, 5 grams of deuterium is very harmful to the human being. That's why. So limit is 5 grams of heavy water in our human body is normally contained. So that is harmless. So what are the applications? Why we have to use this heavy water? So what are these applications? So applications are first to prepare the deuterium. Heavy water. So to prepare the deuterium. Deuterium have many advantages in our normal nuclear power plants. So due to its very low neutron absorption capacity, absorption cross section we can say. So that we will discuss in next topic. So applications are to prepare the deuterium. We can use this heavy water as a trace to study the tracer to study the mechanism of respiration and photosynthesis. In the biotechnological views, if you see, to a tracer, okay, to study about the mechanism, what type of mechanism during the respiration and during the photosynthesis of the plants. So what type of mechanism is involved, to study that one, we can use this as a tracer, deuterium, heavy water. Then D2O is used in the NMR studies, nuclear magnetic resonance, we will say. So chemistry people will be better knowing this one, nuclear magnetic resonance. So that to find out the structures, okay, in the catalysis, especially in the catalysis to find out the structure, or in the chemistry, there are many structures. How they will find out that structures? Using this NMR technique. In the NMR technique also, the application is there for the deuterium oxide or heavy water. Then isotopicals of many organic compounds are prepared with the help of deuterium oxide. In preparation of organic compounds also, we can use this heavy water. Then heavy water is often used instead of normal water in the infrared spectroscopy. In the infrared spectroscopy, like FTIRs, okay, we can use this particular heavy water. Then as a moderator, we have seen in the uranium processing conversion process, or this power generation from the uranium processes, or reactor 1 and reactor 2, breeder reactor and fission reactor. There you will use as a moderator in order to have a low absorption capacity of that particular neutrons. We know that in every nuclear reaction, 2 to 3 neutrons will be generated. So because of this neutrons generation, it will be called as a chain reaction. So we could not waste the 2 to 3 neutrons unnecessarily. If the neutrons are absorbing inside that particular reactor, or absorbing inside that nuclear fuel, so that is wastage. So in order to not to have that much wastage, we have to use some moderator. So that moderator is nothing but deuterium oxide. One of the moderator is deuterium oxide or heavy water. So as a moderator in the nuclear reactor to slow down the neutrons, since it can slow down the fast moving neutrons so that they can react with the U-235 isotope instead of the U-238 isotope. So U-238, we know that this is a fertile fuel, but this U-235 is known as this fission fuel. So to do that, all this mechanism as a moderator, we will use this deuterium oxide or heavy water. Then also the metabolic rate in humans and animals can be tested using the deuterium oxide, okay, or heavy water. So heavy water will have a following many applications. So the notable work has been carried out, and also the first to find out this deuterium oxide or the heavy water is in the whole history, from the whole history, is Nobel laureate Harold Urey is the first person. Then his supervisor, okay, PhD supervisor is this person, Gilbert Newton Lewis. These two persons has been done a notable work, and they have find out this heavy water. If you review the world history, okay, these are the applications and about this general introduction about your heavy water or deuterium oxide. Then India and heavy water, where we are located in this heavy water. Okay, what India, how the India is producing the heavy water. There are many nuclear power plants we have discussed in the earlier classes. So to operate that nuclear power plant, one of the moderator is this deuterium oxide. To do that one, we should have some capacity, for to generate this heavy water. So where are these heavy water boards or heavy water plants are located? So India is the world's largest producer of this heavy water or deuterium oxide. So generally, India will exports to Republic of Korea and also to the US. India is the exporter. We are the proud exporters of this heavy water to the other places like Korea as well as United States. And there are three phases development has been happened in acquiring the current capacity of heavy water production. So now we are the able exporters to the other countries, but during the earlier stages, there are many phases of developments which has been happened. So due to this many phases of development only, now whatever the capacity of heavy water we are producing, so we are proudly producing that heavy water now. Then the research in heavy water production was initiated by the proud chemical engineering division of the Bhabha Atomic Research Center in 1960s. So in 1960s, the origin of this heavy water has been started by the Bhabha Atomic Research Center, especially the chemical engineering division in this Bhabha Atomic Research Center has been started. Okay, we can proudly say that we are the chemical engineers. We are only the starters in India about this heavy water research production. Then Department of Atomic Energy, DAE, commissioned the first heavy water plant in India at the Nangal in the Punjab, okay, in the premises of National Fertilizers Limited, NFL. Now that plant has been dismantled, that plant has been not in operation now. But the first plant which has been commissioned by the Department of Atomic Energy is the heavy water plant, which is at Nangal, which is located in Punjab. Okay, especially in the premises of National Fertilizers Limited. Now it is there, and NFL is there, but the plant has been dismantled in 1962. Okay, then the heavy water board was formed. Okay, there is a heavy water board separately to control this all the heavy water producing plants. So that is called as a HWB, and currently operating 7 plants. Okay, 7 heavy water plants are there, which we will call as a HWP around the country. Where they are located? So heavy water plant Baroda, which is in Gujarat, then heavy water plant which is there in Hazaria, Gujarat, and heavy water plant which is there in the Kota, Rajasthan, then heavy water plant in the Manuguru in Telangana, it is also there, and heavy water plant Talcher, Orissa, it is also there, and heavy water plant Thal, Raigad, Maharashtra, it is also there, and heavy water plant which is in the Tuticorin, which is in Tamil Nadu. So all these 7 heavy water plants are in operation in our India right now. Okay, with installed capacity, many installed capacities are there. Then heavy water production. So what are the various advantages of heavy water production? So first, the flow sheet, the aim of the flow sheet is to produce a 99% deuterium. Okay, we have to produce a 99% deuterium, but we have said in the sources, okay, whatever the deuterium sources are there, normal water or the petroleum fractions, okay, whatever the sources are there, among that sources only 0.014143 percentage is there as a deuterium. So this much percentage means divided by 100 means you will get further two zeros, 0.000143. Okay, that many fraction of your deuterium will be available in the natural sources, but that much deuterium has to be concentrated to around 99 percentage of deuterium. So why we have to use this only heavy water? Why can't we use the normal hydrogen, normal water? What are its advantages? For example, if you take the neutron absorption capacity or the neutron absorption cross section, which is usually measured in the millibrams. So this neutron absorption capacity or the neutron absorption cross section of our heavy water will be less compared to the normal hydrogen. So normal hydrogen will have a neutron absorption cross section whose symbol, okay, whose notation is sigma A. Okay, sigma A. So sigma A of hydrogen will be 330 and sigma A of this deuterium will be 0.46. So this, because of this low sigma, which is nothing but neutron absorption cross section, it is in a great demand in nuclear reactors. So especially this deuterium is very great demand, which are to control the neutron absorption. So to not to waste the neutron absorption, we have to use this heavy water because of this low absorption capacity or because of this low neutron absorption cross section. So what is the ratio of this neutron absorption cross section? So neutron absorption cross section of normal hydrogen is this 330, whereas the isotopic form of this hydrogen, which is called as deuterium, its neutron absorption cross section is 0.46. If you divide it, if you convert this as a ratio form, it is a ratio of 720. Because of this low neutron absorption cross section of our deuterium, it is largely in great demand in your nuclear power production industries. Then Indian technology of nuclear fuel reactors does not provide in uranium enrichment facilities. So uranium enrichment facilities are there no in the nuclear power plants. Okay, this is the general flow sheet. So here the general flow sheet is there. Enrichment of gases diffusion. This is not provided by the Indian technology. So the use of deuterium permits the use of natural uranium as a fuel for reactors. So without this also the flow sheet can be operated, but we have to use a deuterium oxide in order to permit the use of this natural uranium as a fuel for the nuclear reactors. What are the various ideal characteristics are there? So deuterium oxide will possess many ideal characteristics. Okay. Okay, what are the major ideal characteristics which are there for the deuterium oxide? So deuterium oxide is a independence. So this process is independent from other industrial process. So this hydrogen production HDO from the HDO or HD deuterium oxide, whatever we are taking, that is independent of any other industrial process. That is the advantage of this deuterium oxide. And also there is no byproduct. Okay, there is no byproduct in this production process. And also the use of natural water as a deuterium source is the clear advantage of this process, and also have a very low cost. Okay, lowest cost is there. It will have a very low cost because of this ideal characteristics. The following process we can see. So there are usually two raw material sources are there in order to obtain a D2O. So to obtain that one, first source is natural water. In the natural water in the form of hydrogen deuterium oxide HDO. So deuterium is present, and also in the in hydrogen from petroleum sources, which is present in the form of HD, which is hydrogen deuterium. So in the all two sources, it will be present in very minute fraction, which is 0.0143 fraction are also there. So there are four methods to produce this deuterium separation, or to separate or concentrate this much fraction of deuterium to 99 percentage. So what are these four different processes? So four different processes are, the methods are dual temperature exchange. So dual temperature exchange, for this one, the material used is hydrogen sulfide and H2O. As a source we can use this one, and its alpha or this one, we'll see absorption separation factor. So usually this separation factor will be denoted by alpha. So alpha of this low temperature, dual temperature, no, in this one there are two temperatures. One is low temperature and one is a high temperature. Low temperature operation will be performed at 35 degrees centigrade. For this one, separation factor is 2.2. Whereas for the high temperature, the separation factor is 1.8. So the separation factor for this dual temperature process is at low temperature it is 2. I think this is 2.8. Okay, this is 2.8, not 2.2. Okay, 2.2 at 35 degrees centigrade and 1.8 at 135 degrees centigrade. Low temperature and high temperature. Because of this process only, we call it as a dual temperature exchange process. Okay, in which the materials used are hydrogen sulfide and normal water. Then next method is a water distillation. We have to distill a water. So that will be performed using normal water. So that will be performed at the separation factor will be around 1.05. So alpha is equal to 1.05 at 100 mmHg. Okay, 100 mmHg, mmH2O, water, not Hg, H2O, water, mmH2O. This separation factor will be 1.05. And next process is electrolysis of water. So here water will be used and its separation factor alpha will be around 7 to 8. So if you can see here, the separation factor is very much highest for electrolysis. Okay, whereas other processes will contain 2.8, 1.8, 1.05. Then next method is a hydrogen distillation. We have to distill a hydrogen. So hydrogen source from the petroleum we can use to distill this deuterium oxide. So its separation factor will be around 1.75. So combination of various methods are used due to the economic reasons as shown in the flow sheet. So flow sheet will contain the combination of all these four methods. Okay, why? Because no one process is very much advantageous, so that we can directly use the one process to produce a 99% deuterium. If you produce using only one process, so that will be economically very disadvantageous. We cannot use that one. Okay, we have to invest a lot to get a minimum amount of heavy water. So that's why the combination process, the combination of various processes, all these methods will be very much advantageous. So what is the separation factor? What we are telling this separation factor? So separation factor is nothing but the amount of deuterium separated per amount of feed input. So for example, we are giving a feed here as H2S or H2O. So this will be in the denominator. From that H2O or H2S, how much amount of deuterium we have separated? That is nothing but a separation factor. The ratio of amount of deuterium separated divided by amount of feed input is nothing but separation factor. That separation factor will be very high for the electrolysis, around 7 to 8. But no other process is matching this much separation factor in this following cases. So that's what we, due to the economic reasons, we will use the dual. We will use the combination of various processes. All these four methods we will use. So using only one process to produce a 6500 concentration is not advantageous or not economical. So however, the combination of processes we are showing in the flow sheet is very much advantageous to produce the heavy water, which is containing 99% deuterium or heavy water. So in the flow sheet, all the combination of processes will be there in the flow sheet. So here if you can see, this is a dual temperature process. This is dual temperature exchange process, in which this is a cold tower. It will be operated at 35 degrees centigrade. Whose okay, this is alpha is 2.2 only, not 2.8. I think 2.2. Okay, sorry for that. 2.2 this is. So in the flow sheet it is given as 2.2. The separation factor for this cold temperature tower is 2.2 alpha. Separation factor is there. Then for the hot tower or high temperature tower, it is 135 degrees centigrade. The operating condition is 135 degrees centigrade, and whose alpha, which is a separation factor, is around 1.8. This one. Then this is a dual temperature exchange process. The lines which are there in the dotted is a vapor, okay, which is a vapor line, and the lines which are there in the bold line is a normal liquid. So here the stream, gas stream, mainly which is composed of hydrogen sulfide, which will be going, and hydrogen sulfide is there here in the gaseous phase, and the normal water which is in the liquid phase, which is containing around 0.0143 or nearly equal to 0.015% deuterium. So normal water will be input from here and the H2S will be supplied from here. There will be going to the cold tower at 35 degrees centigrade, and they will be once again going to this dual temperature hot tower process. Then combinedly the depleted water means whatever the water from which the deuterium has been separated, which will be just went off or depleted water to the stream stripping for H2S removal. Whatever the remaining H2S is there, which will be removed from the water, normal stripped out water or depleted water. Then the fraction which has been product, which will be coming around 15%. See here in the water, the deuterium is around 0.015%. But here the deuterium has been concentrated to 15% in the single process. Okay, single process means dual temperature process. So after that one, this 15% water has been sent to the vacuum distillation unit. So water distillation is nothing but it has to be performed at the vacuum conditions. So this will be operated around 100 mmHg. This one 100 mmHg, it will be operated. This vacuum tower. Vacuum distillation means subatmospheric pressure distillation. Then after it has been passed through this distillation column like this way, this is a cooling water stripping out, recycle. Okay, all this will be recycled. Whatever the fraction which has been not converted will be once again will be recycled back to the cold tower. Then the fraction which has been converted or which we can successfully distill out, that deuterium will be separated out from the bottom section. See, 15% deuterium water has been passed through the distillation. Then after passing through the distillation, it will be around 90%. From first stage, okay, from 0.015% deuterium to it has been reduced, which has been enriched to 15% deuterium. And in the next method, vacuum distillation, the 15% deuterium has been enriched to 90% deuterium. And next is the stage of electrolysis. So electrolytic cascade we will say. So this one. So electrolysis stage. So in which normal water will be used. So it will be 90% deuterium will be sent in a stage wise manner. So it will be burned, electrolysis. So hydrogen will be burned in the stage 1 and K2CO3 is the electrolyte which is used, and it will be separated it out in the still, and whatever the K2CO3 electrolyte will be there, which will be once again sent back as a recycle to the stage 1. So two-stage process this one. Then in a still the product, okay, whatever the deuterium oxide which has been concentrated will be separated out, and the concentration of deuterium is around 99.75%. So this is the third stage. So from the first stage it is 0.015 to 15%. That is one method. The next method it is 90% from the 15% deuterium oxide, and in the stage manner electrolysis plus hydrogen burning. Okay, hydrogen burner is there here. If you see electrolysis stages and hydrogen burners combinedly, we can use these two methods, hydrogen distillation and electrolysis method. There you can concentrate your 90% deuterium to 99.75% deuterium. This is the final product which we can directly use into the nuclear reactors. So this is the heavy water production. So each and individual, so this separately I have shown here in the flow sheets. So this is same flow sheet. In the examination you have to draw this overall flow sheet. To explain about only this process, I have broken down that flow sheet into 3 sections. So first one is dual temperature exchange process. The aim of this process is to concentrate your deuterium from 0.015% to 15% deuterium. So the following reaction can be taken place here. So first, normal water H2O will be addition with the HDS. So hydrogen deuterium sulfide, HDS. Then in the cold tower, so around 35 degrees centigrade, your forward reaction will be performed, which is formation of HDO, which is hydrogen deuterium oxide plus hydrogen sulfide will be formed. And in the reverse reaction will be applicable in the next hot temperature tower. So in this tower, so here in this tower, this reverse reaction will be happening. That is, hydrogen deuterium oxide will be combined with H2S and it will be forming H2O and HDS. Then this H2O, H2O and D2S, okay, D2S, deuterium sulfide will be combined together in the forward reaction in the cold tower, and it will be forming D2O, deuterium oxide plus H2S. And in the hot tower, the reverse reaction is applicable, in which the D2O plus H2S will be once again coming back to the H2O and D2S. And in this manner, whatever the HDO which is formed, two molecules of HDO will be fractioned down into DTO plus H2O, and the depleted water will be sent to the vent off. Okay, sent to be, it will be just stripped out. So these are the reaction which is taking place in the dual temperature exchange process. So what are the major engineering problems in this dual temperature exchange process? So first of all, the choice of temperature. So it cannot be lower than that one, it cannot be higher than that one. Accurately, we have to maintain the temperatures. Okay, how to maintain the temperatures? Okay, what type of supply, what type of coolants, what type of various phenomena we have to use that one, that will be forming a basis for that one. So the choice of temperature and pressure is very much important. So the design principle requires a largest possible temperature difference between the what we say, between this cold tower and hot tower. At the same time, high pressures are very much advantageous to attain high mass flow rates at allowable what we say, this linear velocity in the tower of reasonable diameter. So at the same time, see, the maintenance of accurate temperature is difficult, and at the same time, if you increase the pressure, that is advantageous for this dual temperature exchange process. So the upper limit of the pressure is well defined. So there is the upper limit for the pressure, as that where the solid hydrates of H2S, okay, H2S. So at the high pressures, at very high pressures, what happens? This will be formed as a solid hydrates. Okay, solids, it will be converted to solids, this hydrogen sulfide. So the higher temperature is the triple point of that hydrate of H2S. So that triple point is around 29.5 degrees centigrade, or nearly 221 atmospheric pressure. At 221 atmospheric pressure, the salt hydrates will be formed at 29.5 degrees centigrade. So the temperature and pressure should be maintained. The highest temperature, maximum, will be maintained at 29.5 degrees centigrade and 221 atmospheric pressure. And it is also very convenient to choose a class of standard around 20 atmospheric piping pressure fitting for the design. Okay, for the design, we have to choose a 20 atmospheric pressure piping pressure. Okay, during the fitting, all these fittings, whatever it is there. So to design that one, with 20 standard atmospheric pressures, we have to choose. Then the operating temperature was set at 35 degrees centigrade for the cold tower. Okay, for this cold tower, we have set the operating temperature around 35 degrees centigrade. But here we are telling that hydrates will be formed at 29.5 degrees centigrade, and that too at 221 atmospheric pressure. So there will be some optimum. So the optimum temperature in the cold tower is not well defined as that of the cold tower. So in the hot tower, the optimum temperature is not well defined. So however, we can do that one when temperature is above 140 degrees centigrade. If this temperature is hot tower temperature is very much more than the 135 degrees centigrade or more than 140 degrees centigrade. So the gain from the increase in the temperature is more than the offset of the rapid increase in the concentration of water vapor into the gas stream. So whatever we have gained by operating at 135 degrees centigrade, at least that gains entirely will be lost. So there will be somewhat loss when you operate this tower at more than 135 degrees centigrade. But here until the 35 degrees centigrade we can obtain, but the lower limit is 29.5 degrees centigrade. So the proper choice between this temperature and pressure is very much essential. That is very much problem. So choice of temperature and pressure is very important in this design of these two towers, hot and cold tower. And next one is a corrosion. Okay, H2S is there here, hydrogen sulfide. So this is a corrosive gas. H2S is a corrosive gas. So H2S used in this reactor is highly corrosive and corrode the carbon steel. So since if you are manufacturing your hot tower and cold tower using this carbon steel, then it will be corroded. So use of this iron sulfide, okay, what we say, iron sulfide as a protective coating is very much helpful to lower that momentum of this corrosion. So to lower the corrosion, we have to coat this cold tower and hot tower using some ferrous sulfide, nothing but iron sulfide. We have to coat them with that ferrous sulfide. Then however, at the high turbulence, at very high flow rates, what happens? The protective coating will corrode. So the protective coating will also be corroded at high turbulence, means at very high flow rates. So in practice, what happens usually, the carbon steel is very much satisfactory. So instead of using your normal carbon steel, the carbon steel can be used, but it has to be coated with ferrous sulfide. So in practice, what happens, carbon steel is satisfactorily used for tower shells, so heat exchanger shell, and mostly for the processing pipelines. But type 304 stainless steel will be there. That type of stainless steel 304 is used in tower trays and heat exchanger tubes where fluid velocity is very high. So in this one, a small trace will be there. So what about this trace, you will be clearly knowing in this mass transfer operations, which you are going to see in the unit 2 and unit 3 distillation chapters. So in that one, what are the towers, what is meant by trace, everything you are seeing. So the construction of this cold tower and hot tower will be usually taking place in the practice using carbon steel only. But inside the trace will be constructed using type 304 stainless steel. So stainless steel somewhat costly compared to the carbon steel we have to use for the construction of trays which are there inside the tower. So at very high turbulence or at very high velocities, we have to use that one. And the next one is maintaining adequate feed water supply. So feed water supply, we have to supply here water, input water of 0.015% deuterium. So the maintaining this supply is also very difficult. We have to find out a fresh water or decontaminated water. Water will contain many contaminants. So we have to supply maintaining this continuous supply is very difficult. And next one is waste disposal and preventing short circuiting of the depleted water to the feed supply is also very difficult. Waste disposal is very difficult in the nuclear power plants, especially in this heavy water production also, which is very difficult. So this is about the first tower, this process. Okay, I hope it is clear. If this process is clear, I will go to the next process.
Clear, sir.
Okay, then the flow sheet. Okay, don't confuse this. You don't have to explain in clearly. Okay, you just draw this flow sheet, a big flow sheet, and try to explain each and every part. Okay, this method is separate, this method is separate, and this method is separate, and this method is separate. Burner method is separate. So all the four processes are there in the flow sheet. That's why for your understanding, I have broken down this flow sheet into many parts. Okay, the next one is this part of the flow sheet. Okay, that will be containing here. Okay, that is concentrating from 15% deuterium to 90% deuterium. So the economic optimum problem involving tower height and diameter, pumping cost, and heavy heat recovery shows when pressure is 100 mmHg, the separation factor has increased to 1.052 compared to 1.07 at atmospheric pressure. Why we have to use a vacuum distillation? That is the explanation of this one. If you decrease, okay, if you decrease the pressure, okay, to the subatmospheric pressure, means 100 mmHg, your separation factor is around 1.05. Whereas if you perform the same operation in normal distillation or the atmospheric distillation, then your separation factor is around 1.027. So separation factor is lower when you perform your operation at normal atmospheric pressure. But when you perform at subatmospheric pressure, your separation factor is very high. That's the advantage of using this vacuum distillation. Okay, instead of normal distillation, we are using a vacuum distillation or vacuum condition or subatmospheric condition. Okay, this is the second part of the flow sheet, this one. Then we have enriched our content of deuterium to 15% to 90%. Then our task is to enrich this 90% deuterium to around 99.75%. So simultaneous electrolysis as well as the burner process or hydrogen distillation process will be taking place in this towers, in this still. Okay, 90% deuterium will be entering in a staged manner here, and it will be burned in the H2 burner here, and it will be performed in a two-stage operation. So the electrolyte which we have used and recycled back is a K2CO3. Okay, this one is used here. Then after passing this simultaneous electrolysis and hydrogen distillation, the final product will contain 99.75% deuterium. Therefore, our aim of producing our deuterium oxide around 99%. Okay, from 0.0143 or 0.015 percentage to 99 percentage has been met using this flow sheet. So combination of all these four processes will be shown in this flow sheet, single flow sheet. So they are asking many times this question, explain in detail along with the flow sheet how to produce the heavy water. Okay, what are the major engineering problems involved? What are the advantages of heavy water compared to the normal water? Okay, then whenever they are asking such a question, you have to explain first what is a heavy water, define what is heavy water, what are the various isotopic forms of hydrogen. So heavy water is nothing but which is a enriched form of water which will be containing a large amount of deuterium. Okay, deuterium is nothing but an isotopic form of hydrogen. There are three isotopic forms of hydrogen. One is protium itself, and then deuterium and tritium. Okay, so for the normal protium, there will be what we call one proton, and for the deuterium, there will be addition of one neutron, and sorry. So then for the tritium, there will be addition of one more neutron is there. Okay, along with the proton, there are two neutrons will be there in this one. Then after that, heavy water, normal water will have a molecular weight of 18 gram per gram mole, and heavy water will contain a molecular weight of 20.0276 gram per gram mole. Okay, so this isotopic forms you have already explained. Then the presence of deuterium gives the water a different nuclear properties, but they will not give any radioactive properties to the water. So normally in the human beings, around 5 grams of deuterium will be present, but this is harmful for this human being. But whenever the limits has been crossed for the deuterium, that is harmful for the human beings. Okay, that by this you have to explain, and the density of this heavy water will be above 11% greater than the normal water. So these facts you have to give after defining your heavy water. Then what are the applications of your heavy water? All these applications you have to define. Then after that, okay, this is not required for your knowledge. I have given the old history, these names, and this heavy water boards. Where are they located in India? Okay, what is heavy water board? What is heavy water plants? How many they are functioning? Where they are functioning? This is not at all required to give anything in the examination. Only you just concentrate on this topic. What is the definition? What are the facts of the heavy water? Then what are the applications of heavy water? Then what is how to produce this heavy water? Okay, to produce this heavy water, put a side heading as this heavy water production, then give a aim is to produce a heavy water of 99% deuterium from 0.0143% deuterium. So why we have to use a heavy water means we have to use a heavy water due to its advantage of having very low neutron absorption cross section, which is around 0.46 millibron. So millibron is nothing but 1 millibron is equal to 10 power minus 28 meter square. So this is 10 power 1 millibron is equal to 10 power minus 28 meter square is nothing but a millibron. So due to its low neutron absorption cross section, so heavy water is largely employed or greatly employed, or it has found a greater application in the nuclear power industry in order to lower the neutron absorption capacity. And then you give this ratio of neutron absorption cross section. The neutron absorption cross section of hydrogen is 330 and neutron absorption cross section of deuterium is 0.46. And because of this ratio is very high, we can successfully use this heavy water in the nuclear energy production in order to lower the neutron absorption capacity of the normal neutrons. Then put a side heading as the raw materials required. So there are two raw materials which are required to produce the heavy water. One is a natural water. In the natural water, the deuterium will be present in the form of HDO. HDO means hydrogen deuterium oxide. Then in the in hydrogen, in the petroleum sources, it will be present as a hydrogen deuterium. So all these two sources will be having a deuterium around 0.0143%. There are ideal characteristics of process. So that is, this process is independent of any other industrial process, as well as there is no byproducts are there, and this is a natural water. Natural water can be used as a deuterium source, and also it is cost effective. You have to give a ideal characteristics, then put a methods to produce this heavy water. There are four methods. One is a dual temperature exchange process whose separation factor is this much, and water distillation whose separation factor is this much, and electrolysis process whose separation factor is this much, and hydrogen distillation whose separation factor is this much. So what is separation factor? You just define with this process. Then after defining that one, you just tell no one process, single process is advantageous economically. So in order to have a economical advantage, we have to use a combination of all these four methods in a single process to produce a deuterium of 99% deuterium containing heavy water. Then you just draw this flow sheet. After drawing a flow sheet, this process you explain as such, which is given here. So these are the reaction which is taking place in the dual temperature process, and there are major engineering problems or challenges which are faced by this dual temperature process. So in the notebook, it has been clearly given whatever I have said in the choice of temperature. Don't write this as a side headings. Okay, after putting this side heading choice of temperature, what is the difficulty in this temperature maintaining and pressure maintaining? You have to explain. That is given clearly in the notebook. You have to read that one. Then corrosion. Okay, what type of steel? Type 304 steel we have to use in the plate trace construction, but we can use in the shell construction normal carbon steel we can use. So that you have to give explanation. Then maintenance of adequate feed supply is very disadvantageous for this process. Then waste disposal is very much challenging in this process. Then the next part of the flow sheet you have to explain, because of this high separation factor, we have to use operate this tower at a low pressures or subatmospheric pressures. You have to give explanation like that. The next electrolysis process. So relatively small amount of H2 can be burned with oxygen for recycle to increase the stage efficiency. So you have to give this explanation. Then you can finally get 90 to 99.75% deuterium oxide. So this is very, very important. Many times they are asking. Okay, go and just study this one once again. Is that clear?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Then next we are going to start from the next class, part B, which is about explosives and propellants. Okay, before going to the next class in this part B, I request you to once again revise all these topics. Okay, if you have any doubts, if you come across any difficulties, just try to ask me, try to clarify from me, or you just clarify by reading a textbook or notebook, whatever it may be. Before that, you just try to learn all these topics. Then we can successfully go to the part B. So part B is about explosives and propellants. Okay, propellants, how general introduction you will provide. I will be providing how this rocket will be flying. Okay, what is the thrust? Okay, what is the burning capacity of that fuel? Okay, everything I will explain the basics. That one. After that one, a general introduction about propellants. Various propellants are there. Various propellant systems are there. Chemical propellants, hybrid propellants, then nuclear energy propellants. Okay, there are 5 different types of propellants are there. Propulsion systems are there, or chemical energy system. In detail we will discuss. Then the basics of chemical reactant characteristics, like a solid propellants, liquid propellants, hybrid propellants. What are the definitions of this one? What form they will be present? We will see in this one. Then basic considerations, how to develop a good chemical propellant system. So that we will discuss in detail. There are parameters which are involved. Then burning rate control, then hydrogen storage, utilization of propellant, what are the safety aspects which has to be involved, what are the construction safety aspects which has to be involved. Then nuclear propulsion system, a small topic, nuclear propulsion system we will discuss. Then the last topic in this one will be the high energy chemicals. There are 2 types of high energy chemicals. One is hydrazine and next one is boron hydrogen compounds, which are called as boranes. Okay, combinedly these boron hydrogen compounds are called as boranes. Here the 2 flow sheets will be there. Hydrogen production 1 flow sheet and boranes production 1 flow sheet. Here a common topic, some flow sheets will be there. Okay, before coming to the next class, I request you to thoroughly once again study this part A. We don't have any time, so you will be giving we will be giving some schedule so that you can have your practical classes also. Okay, by next week or next to next week. Okay, so because of this one, we don't have much time, so just try to revise and study then and finish it off. Part A. Then part B we will cover. These are the various topics are there. We will study, we will deal with this one. Okay, you will be enjoying this one, how the rockets will be flying in everything. Okay, keep motivated and try to learn. Then revise, preview, listen and review. This you have to follow. Okay, these are the slides that I am going to cover. Okay, from the next class onwards. Okay, any doubts until here? Anybody? No doubts?
No doubts, sir.
Okay, yeah. Please read accordingly. Then have a nice day. Enjoy.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.